She left a blood pie under the full moon for the broken alpha next door, and he growled the words that shattered both their lonely hearts. If the curse would let me, I'd bite you and claim you tonight. What began as two grieving souls reaching across shadows became a storm of aching love, dangerous passion, and a curse that threatened to destroy them both. Where are you watching this from right now? Drop your location and tell me one emotion this arc stirred in you. Stay tuned, because the full moon still has one last secret to reveal. What happens when dawn finally breaks on their forever? You won't want to miss it. The kitchen smelled of iron and sugar. Lila wiped flour-dusted hands on her black apron, the same one she'd worn to her grandmother's funeral 6 days earlier. Moonlight poured through the window like spilled milk, catching on the deep crimson filling that bubbled gently in the oven. Blood pie, not just any pie, Grandma's old recipe, the one laced with a careful drop of the baker's own blood, offered as a gesture of devotion when words failed. For the lonely ones, her grandmother used to say with a sad, knowing smile, sometimes the heart needs feeding before it can speak. Lila's heart had been silent for too long. At 26, she lived in the shadow of the old pines that bordered Blackthorn Hollow, a place where humans and werewolves coexisted in uneasy truce. She kept to herself, her little cottage filled with the warm scents of bread and pie, but empty of everything else. No parents left, no siblings, only the ghost of her grandmother's voice and the quiet ache of knowing she was fading into the wallpaper of her own life. Next door stood the ranch house, dark and brooding, belonging to Silas Thorne, the widowed alpha. People whispered about him, how his mate had died under a blood moon years ago, taken by a curse no one fully understood, how he had retreated into solitude, silver hair marking the passage of grief, his wolf rarely seen but always felt. A rancher by day, a storm by night. Lila had watched him from afar for years. The careful way he mended fences at dusk, the lonely tilt of his broad shoulders when he thought no one was looking. Tonight, the full moon pulled at something deep inside her. Grief had sharpened into courage. She couldn't bear another silent night. With trembling fingers, she lifted the warm pie from the oven, wrapped it in a clean linen cloth embroidered with tiny moons, and stepped out into the silver-drenched yard. The air was cool and alive, heavy with pine and wild magic. Crickets fell quiet as she crossed the invisible line between their properties, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She placed the pie on the wide stone ledge beneath the ancient oak that stood sentinel between their homes. The moonlight made the filling glisten like fresh blood and forbidden promise. She whispered, voice barely above the breeze, for the lonely ones. Lila turned to leave, but the night answered. The door of the ranch house opened with a low creak. Silas stepped onto the porch, tall and imposing, moonlight catching the silver threads in his dark hair and the hard lines of his jaw. He wore a simple flannel shirt, rolled up over powerful forearms, but there was nothing simple about the way he moved. Like a predator who had learned to leash himself. His storm-gray eyes found her immediately, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. "You," he said, voice a deep rumble that vibrated through her chest. He descended the steps slowly, nostrils flaring as the scent of the pie reached him. "Lila." She froze, cheeks burning. I'm sorry if I disturbed you. My grandmother, she always said a blood pie under the full moon could ease loneliness. I thought, maybe you—" Silas approached the ledge. He uncovered the pie, broke off a piece with his bare hand, and brought it to his lips. The first bite hit him like lightning. A low, guttural growl tore from his throat. His eyes flashed molten gold, the wolf surging to the surface. Power rolled off him in waves. Raw, aching, magnetic. Claws pricked at the tips of his fingers as he gripped the stone. Lila's breath hitched. Fear and something warmer twisted inside her. She should run. Instead, she stood rooted, watching the lonely alpha fight for control. He swallowed, voice rough as broken gravel. "If the curse would let me, I'd bite you and claim you tonight." The words hung between them, heavy with sorrow and hunger. Silas's gaze darkened with raw longing as he looked at her. Truly looked, seeing the grief in her eyes that mirrored his own. The air thickened with heat. the full moon pulsing overhead like a living heart. She saw the war inside him, the ghost of his lost mate, the ancient curse that had stolen her and now bound him, the deep loneliness that had carved canyons into his soul. Yet there was tenderness too. His clawed hand lifted, hovering near her cheek without touching, trembling with restraint. "You don't know what you're offering, little baker. The danger, the cost." Lila's voice came soft but steady, tears pricking her eyes. "Maybe I'm tired of being alone too. Maybe the moon brought us here for a reason." Sadness and fragile hope bloomed in her chest. His pain was so palpable, she wanted to wrap her arms around him and chase it away. The romance of it, the danger, made her pulse race. Silas stepped closer, the scent of pine and wild musk enveloping her. For one suspended breath, the curse felt distant, and two lonely hearts stood on the edge of something beautiful and terrifying. Then a distant howl echoed through the pines. A warning. Silas's expression hardened. "Go inside, Lila, before I forget why I can't have you." But as she backed away, heart aching with new longing, she knew the full moon had already begun its work. The blood pie had spoken, and neither of them would ever be the same. But as she backed away, heart aching with new longing, she knew the full moon had already begun its work. The blood pie had spoken, and neither of them would ever be the same. Lila barely slept that night. She lay in her narrow bed, the quilt pulled tight around her shoulders, replaying Silas's growl in her mind like a haunting melody. "If the curse would let me..." Those words wrapped around her grief for her grandmother and twisted it into something warmer, more alive. Curiosity burned in her chest alongside the loneliness. Who had he been before the loss? What shadows clung to that curse? And why did it feel like her own empty heart was reaching for his? Dawn came too soon, painting the pines in soft gold. Lila moved through her kitchen on autopilot, baking a simple loaf of bread as if the familiar rhythm could steady her racing thoughts. The scent of yeast and warmth filled the cottage, but it couldn't quite chase away the chill of wondering if she had imagined the heat in his eyes. By late afternoon, restlessness drove her to her grandmother's old oak chest in the corner. She hadn't opened it since the funeral. Dust motes danced in the slanting light as she lifted the lid. Inside lay folded shawls, pressed flowers, and a leather-bound journal she barely remembered. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. The pages were filled with her grandmother's elegant, spidery handwriting, recipes, moon phases, and fragments of old tales. One entry caught her eye, dated decades ago. "The thorn curse binds the alpha's second bond in shadow. Blood calls to blood, but only truth untangles the knot. Beware the rival howls that follow the offering." Lila's breath caught. Mystery unfurled like night-blooming flowers. Was this about Silas? Her pulse quickened with emotional curiosity. What hidden truths lay buried in his past? She traced the words, feeling closer to her grandmother, and, strangely, to the widowed Alpha next door. Sadness welled up. Grandma had known loneliness too, after losing her own love young. Yet she had chosen to pass on these quiet magics, as if hoping someone would one day be brave enough to use them. As dusk settled in a haze of lavender and silver, Lila stepped outside with the journal tucked under her arm. The fence line between their properties called to her like a magnet. She approached slowly, the wooden rails worn smooth by years of quiet separation. Silas was already there, leaning against a post on his side, his silver-streaked hair catching the last light. He looked exhausted, beautiful in his solitude, broad shoulders tense, storm-gray eyes fixed on the horizon as if searching for ghosts. Their gazes met. The air between them hummed. "You came back," he said, voice low and rough, carrying that same gravelly warmth from the night before. He didn't smile, but something softened in his expression, a flicker of reluctant hope, battling the ever-present loneliness. Lila clutched the journal tighter. "I couldn't stay away. Not after what you said." She hesitated, then added softly, "I found something. My grandmother's words about a curse, about blood offerings and rivals. Is it yours, Silas?" He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. The movement revealed the faint scars along his neck, marks from battles long past. "It is." My mate, Alara. She was claimed under a blood moon just like last night. The curse took her when we tried to strengthen our bond against outsiders. An old betrayal by a rival pack. Their alpha wanted the Thornlands. The power. The curse ensures no second mate survives the claiming. It's kept me alive by keeping me alone. The pain in his voice wrapped around Lila's heart like thorns. She could feel his loss echoing her own. The empty chairs at dinner. The silence where laughter should be, yet beneath it bloomed a fragile happiness. He was sharing this with her. Trust, however small, was taking root. I'm sorry, she whispered, stepping closer until only the fence separated them. You've carried that weight for so long. It must feel impossible to hope again. Silas's eyes darkened with raw emotion. It did, until a shy baker left a blood pie under the moon and looked at me like I was still worth saving. His large hand reached across the fence, brushing hers. The contact sent sparks racing up her arm. Warm, electric, alive with wolfish energy. His fingers lingered, calloused and gentle, tracing the delicate veins on the back of her hand. Heat pooled low in her belly, a delicious ache that made her breath hitch. Lila leaned in, curiosity and longing pulling her nearer. The scent of him, pine, musk, and something wild, enveloped her. His wolf was close to the surface. She could see the golden flecks in his eyes, the subtle shift of muscle as he fought for control. Their faces drew closer, lips mere inches apart. The near kiss hung suspended, sweet and dangerous, her heart pounding with romantic promise and the thrill of the unknown. Just as their breaths mingled, a deep growl rumbled from his chest. Silas pulled back sharply, claws extending briefly before he forced them back. Damn it, Lila. The moon is still too strong. One taste of you and I'd lose everything, including you. She touched her lips, cheeks flushed, a lovely mix of sadness and joy swirling inside. This connection felt faded, yet fragile. Then we go slow. I want to understand the curse, to help if I can. Before he could reply, a low, unfamiliar howl echoed from the deeper pines. Not Silas's pack, rival. The sound carried menace, a warning that slithered under her skin. Silas's posture shifted instantly, protective alpha instincts flaring. They've scented the offering, the blood pie. It woke more than just my wolf. Get inside, Lila. Lock your doors. Danger pressed close, but as she hurried back to her cottage, glancing over her shoulder at his watchful silhouette, loneliness felt a little less absolute. Curiosity burned brighter now, about the journal's secrets, about the man fighting centuries of shadow for a chance at love. The night whispered possibilities, even as threats gathered beyond the trees. The next morning brought gray skies and a persistent drizzle that turned the world soft and muted. Lila stood at her window, journal in hand, watching Silas move through his ranch chores with that quiet, powerful grace. His broad shoulders flexed as he repaired a section of fence damaged by the night's winds, but she could see the tension in every line of his body. The rival howl still echoed in her mind, stirring a mix of fear and fierce protectiveness she hadn't expected. By midday, the rain had thickened into a steady downpour. Lila baked again, oatmeal cookies this time, warm and comforting, laced with just a hint of cinnamon and a drop of her blood for courage. She wrapped them carefully and crossed to the fence line once more, heart fluttering with emotional curiosity. What pieces of his past would he share today? How deep did the shadows go? Silas met her at the barn door, which stood slightly ajar, offering shelter from the rain. You shouldn't be out here, he murmured, but there was no real rebuke in his voice. Instead, his storm-gray eyes softened as he took the basket from her hands, their fingers brushing again. That spark reignited, warmer this time. Inside the barn, the scent of hay and leather mingled with fresh rain. They settled on a stack of clean blankets in a quiet corner, the storm drumming steadily on the roof like a heartbeat. Lila opened the journal between them. Look at this, she said softly, pointing to a page filled with mysterious symbols, intertwined moons and thorny vines. Grandma wrote about blood calling to blood. Do you recognize any of it? Silas leaned closer, his large frame radiating heat that chased away the damp chill. His silver-streaked hair fell across his forehead as he studied the pages. These symbols, they're from the old pacts. Alara knew them too. She tried to break the curse before it claimed her. His voice cracked slightly, raw with loss. He traced one symbol with a calloused finger, and Lila saw the grief etched into his features, the loneliness of years spent punishing himself for surviving. "I'm so sorry," Lila whispered, her own eyes misting. She placed a gentle hand on his arm, feeling the solid muscle beneath flannel. "My grandmother was all I had left after my parents died in a car accident when I was 18. She raised me on stories and pies, teaching me to find light in small things. But when she passed, the silence was crushing. I baked every day just to fill the emptiness. That's why I brought you the blood pie. I saw my loneliness in you." Silas turned to her fully, vulnerability cracking his alpha reserve. Alara was fierce, a warrior in her own right. We were young, bonded under the moon, but a rival alpha from the Shadowfang pack wanted our lands. He invoked an ancient blood curse during our renewal ritual. She died in my arms under that blood moon, whispering for me to live. I've carried her ghost every day since, afraid that loving again would only destroy someone else. You make me want to forget that fear, Lila, and that terrifies me. The confession hung between them, bittersweet and profound. Tears slipped down Lila's cheeks, not just for his pain, but for the shared ache of empty homes and silenced voices. Yet in the telling, a fragile happiness bloomed, like sunlight piercing storm clouds. He saw her, truly saw the shy baker who hid behind flour and grief. Outside, thunder rolled, and the rain intensified, sealing them in this private sanctuary. Silas cupped her face with one large hand, thumb brushing away a tear. "You're too good for my shadows, little baker." Their lips met then, tentative at first, then deepening with pent-up longing. The kiss was intense, hungry, his mouth claiming hers with a growl that vibrated through her chest. Lila's hands slid up his chest, fingers tangling in his flannel as she pulled him closer. Heat flared between them, her body responding with a rush of desire that made her dizzy. Silas's arms wrapped around her waist, lifting her slightly onto his lap amid the blankets. His hands roamed her back, strong and reverent, tracing the curve of her spine through her damp sweater. She gasped into his mouth as his fingers slipped beneath the hem, caressing bare skin, sending shivers of pleasure racing across her nerves. The makeout grew fervent, breaths mingling hot and ragged. His wolf surged close. She felt the subtle press of claws at her hips, carefully sheathed. Silas nuzzled her neck, lips grazing the sensitive skin where a claiming bite would go, inhaling her scent like a man starved. "Gods, you taste like hope," he rasped, voice thick with need. Lila arched into him, curiosity and romance intertwining with the danger of his restraint. Her hands explored the hard planes of his chest, feeling his heart thunder beneath her palms. But then he stiffened. A warning tremor ran through him, the curse's shadow flaring like cold fire. Silas pulled back with a pained groan, golden eyes glowing as he fought his instincts. "I can't! Not fully! One bite and it could take you like it took her." Lila rested her forehead against his, breathing hard, cheeks flushed with both passion and understanding. The sadness of his restraint mingled with lovely warmth in her chest. He was protecting her, even as desire clawed at them both. They lingered in the barn for hours, poring over the journal, uncovering more symbols that hinted at a ritual of shared blood and truth. Small domestic joys softened the edges, Lila feeding him a cookie, his rare, crooked smile breaking through the grief, him wrapping her in a dry blanket when she shivered. As evening fell and the rain eased, they walked back toward the fence. But danger had not waited. On Lila's doorstep lay a folded note, weighted with a sharp claw. "The blood offering calls rivals. Break the bond, or watch the baker bleed like the last one." Silas's expression darkened with protective fury. "They won't touch you. Yet as he crushed the note in his fist, mystery deepened, the curse's threads pulling tighter, even as their hearts reached desperately for light. Lila's pulse thrummed with a cocktail of fear and resolve. The rival pack's threat hung in the cooling evening air, like smoke, but standing beside Silas, his tall frame a wall of restrained power, she felt something steadier bloom beneath the terror. Tender hope. This lonely alpha, who had carried solitude like a second skin, was choosing to shield her. It made her chest ache, with both sadness for his past wounds and a quiet, lovely joy that she might be the one to ease them. "Come inside," she said softly, taking his hand. His fingers curled around hers, warm and calloused, sending that familiar spark racing through her veins. They retreated to her cottage, the door clicking shut behind them, like a fragile promise against the gathering dark. The kitchen, still fragrant with the day's baking, felt like a sanctuary. Lila set water to boil for tea, while Silas paced, his wolf restless beneath the surface. As they sat at the small wooden table, journal open between them, curiosity pulled them deeper into the mystery. "Look here," Lila murmured, turning a page. Her grandmother's handwriting grew urgent toward the end. It can be unraveled only if the second heart willingly bleeds truth. Not all bonds are doomed, only those built on fear alone. Silas's breath hitched. "Alara and I, we were young, passionate, but we never faced the fear together. I thought claiming her stronger would protect us. Instead, it triggered the Shadowfang betrayal." His voice was thick with old grief, the kind that never fully faded. He stared at the page, silver-streaked hair falling forward, and for a moment, the powerful alpha looked heartbreakingly lost. Loneliness had carved deep lines around his eyes. Yet now, gazing at Lila, those same eyes held growing love, a battle raging inside him between the past and the fragile future she represented. "I visit her grave sometimes," he confessed quietly, "when the weight gets too heavy. Maybe you'd come with me tonight, under the moon. I need you to see all of me, shadows and all." Lila's heart twisted. The invitation was intimate, vulnerable. "Yes," she whispered. "I want to understand." They waited until the moon rose high, a luminous silver orb bathing Blackthorn Hollow in ethereal light. Hand in hand, they walked the winding path behind the ranch, past whispering pines to a small clearing where a weathered stone marker stood. Alara's resting place. Wildflowers grew around it, tended by Silas's quiet hands over the years. He knelt, placing a single moonberry from Lila's garden on the stone, his broad shoulders slumping under the weight of memory. "I loved her," he said, voice breaking. "But loving you, it doesn't diminish that. It terrifies me because it feels bigger, deeper, like the moon itself is pulling us together." Tears glistened in his storm-gray eyes, and Lila knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Their shared loss hung between them, her grandmother's recent passing, his mate's violent end, yet in that embrace, loneliness eased. Two wounded souls finding solace in the quiet night. Sadness lingered, soft and poignant, but hope shone brighter, lovely and tentative. Rising, Silas pulled her close under the full moonlight. The air thickened with heat. His hands settled on her hips, drawing her flush against his solid body. "You smell like home," he growled softly, nuzzling into the curve of her neck. His lips brushed her pulse point, warm and insistent, followed by the slow drag of his tongue, scent marking her with deliberate care. Lila shivered, desire flaring hot and sweet. She tilted her head, offering more, her fingers threading through his silver hair. The moment intensified. Silas's arms banded around her, one hand splaying across her lower back as he pressed open-mouthed kisses along her throat. A low rumble vibrated from his chest, his wolf rising close enough that she felt the faint prick of fangs against her skin, controlled, teasing, but edged with danger. Heat pooled between them, her body arching instinctively into his. His free hand roamed up her side, thumb grazing the underside of her breast through her sweater, drawing a soft moan from her lips. The romance of it, the raw, protective tenderness, made her heart swell, even as fear whispered of the curse. "You're mine to protect," he rasped, voice husky with need, nipping gently at her earlobe before soothing it with another kiss. Their bodies moved together in a slow, heated rhythm, hips pressing, breaths mingling in the cool night. It was intense, controlled passion, his restraint a testament to love battling ancient shadows. Lila felt desired, cherished, her shyness melting under his touch. Yet the curse stirred. A chill wind swept through the clearing, and Silas stiffened, pulling back with a pained groan. Golden eyes met hers, filled with longing and regret. "It's awakening," he said, voice rough. "The closer we get, the stronger it fights. But the journal, it suggests a ritual of shared blood and truth might break it. We need an elder. Old Mira, in the deep woods, she might know more." Before Lila could respond, danger shattered the moment. A low snarl erupted from the tree line. A rival scout, lean, feral-eyed, shadow fang markings on his jacket, lunged from the shadows, claws extended. "The baker's blood is ours if you claim her, Thorn." Silas shoved Lila behind him, shifting partially, muscles rippling, claws fully extended. A brutal clash ensued, snarls and impacts echoing through the pines. The scout raked Silas's arm, drawing blood, but Silas overpowered him with raw alpha strength, pinning him briefly. "Tell your alpha, she is under my protection. The next intruder dies." The scout fled, melting into the trees with a mocking laugh. Silas turned to Lila, blood trickling down his forearm, concern etching his features. She pressed a cloth to the wound, her hands trembling but steady with determination. The mystery had deepened. The curse was no longer dormant, stirring with their every touch. Yet as they hurried back to the cottage, leaning on each other, the tender hope between them burned brighter than the fear. Tonight had revealed truths and threats alike. The path forward was perilous, but neither was alone anymore. Flames and fears. Back in Lila's cottage, the door bolted against the night. Silas allowed her to tend his wound under the warm glow of oil lamps. The cut wasn't deep, but the sight of his blood, crimson against his tanned skin, stirred something fierce and protective in her. She cleaned it gently with a cloth dipped in herbal water from her grandmother's stores, her fingers lingering on the strong muscles of his forearm. Curiosity and tenderness wove together. She wanted to know every scar, every story that had shaped this lonely alpha into the man who made her heart race. "You keep saving me," she murmured, voice soft with emotion, "even when it costs you." Silas caught her hand, his storm-gray eyes stormy with conflict. "It's what I couldn't do for Alara. And now, with you, every touch feels like tempting fate." The confession carried the weight of years of self-imposed isolation, his loneliness a vast ocean that her presence had begun to calm, yet also churn into turbulent waves of doubt. They moved to the worn sofa by the fireplace, where a small fire crackled against the deepening chill. The journal lay open on the low table, symbols glowing faintly in the firelight, as if awakened by their proximity. Lila leaned into his side, seeking the solid warmth of him, and Silas wrapped an arm around her shoulders. For a while, they simply breathed together, the shared silence heavy with romance and unspoken fears. She felt desired in a way she never had. Seen, wanted, not as a shy baker hiding from the world, but as the light breaking through his endless night. Sadness lingered for the ghosts they both carried, but a lovely, blooming happiness made her press closer. Passion, however, refused to stay banked. The full moon's lingering pull, combined with the adrenaline of the attack, ignited the air between them. Silas turned her toward him, capturing her lips in a deep, searing kiss. It started tender, but quickly flared into hunger. Lila gasped as his large hands spanned her waist, pulling her onto his lap. Straddling him, she felt the hard evidence of his desire pressing against her through their clothes, sending heat spiraling low in her belly. "Tell me to stop," he growled against her mouth. But his actions betrayed the plea. hands sliding under her sweater to caress bare skin, thumbs brushing the sensitive peaks of her breasts. Lila moaned softly, arching into his touch, her own fingers exploring the broad planes of his chest beneath his flannel. The friction built as she rocked against him, grinding slowly, instinctively. Clothes remained mostly on, a necessary barrier against the curse, but it did little to dim the intensity. Silas's mouth trailed hot kisses down her throat, fangs grazing the delicate skin where a claiming bite would seal their fate. The near bite sent shivers of dangerous pleasure through her. She tilted her head further, offering herself, curiosity and longing overriding caution for one breathless moment. "You feel like fire and home," he rasped, voice thick with need. One hand gripped her hip, guiding her movements into a rhythmic grind that had them both panting. The other tangled in her hair, holding her close as their bodies moved together. Clothed yet intimately connected, heat and friction building toward an edge they couldn't quite cross. Lila felt alive, desired, her shyness burned away in the blaze of his attention. Tears pricked her eyes from the overwhelming emotion, the lovely ache of being wanted so fiercely by someone who had known such loss. But then the curse awakened stronger. A sharp chill swept through Silas, his body tensing beneath her. Golden eyes flashed with inner torment as he suddenly pulled back, gently but firmly lifting her off his lap and setting her beside him. His breathing was ragged, claws extended before he forced them to retract. "No," he said hoarsely, self-punishing grief carving deep lines into his face. "I almost lost control. I won't let it take you like it took her. I've already failed one mate. I won't survive failing you." The withdrawal stung, leaving Lila flushed and aching with unfulfilled desire. But the sadness in his eyes mirrored her own. She reached for him anyway, cupping his jaw. "You're not failing me by wanting this. We're fighting it together." That's what the journal meant. Truth and shared blood, not fear alone. Her voice trembled with lovely hope amid the doubt, emotions tangling beautifully. Passion, grief, and the warm certainty that this connection was worth every risk. Silas leaned into her touch, forehead resting against hers. Emotional aftercare wrapped around them like a soft blanket. He held her close, murmuring apologies and promises, stroking her hair as their heartbeats gradually slowed. The firelight danced across their faces, highlighting the tenderness beneath the flames. The next morning, driven by the journal's clues and the escalating danger, they set out at first light toward the deep woods. Old Mira, a reclusive elder rumored to hold forgotten lore, lived in a hidden glade. The journey was tense, hands linked, curiosity fueling every step as they discussed possible ritual elements. But danger intensified before they reached her. A savage attack struck the ranch as they returned briefly for supplies. Shadowfang wolves, 3 this time, descended in a blur of fur and fangs, targeting the barn and fences in an attempt to draw Silas out. Growls and crashes echoed as he shifted partially to defend his territory, tearing through the intruders with ferocious alpha power, while Lila watched from the doorway, heart in her throat. One wolf grazed her arm with claws before Silas dispatched it, blood staining the ground. Panting, wounded but victorious, Silas pulled her close afterward. "They're getting bolder. The blood pie and our bond. It's threatening their claim on these lands." Mystery swirled thicker, the curse's source tied to old betrayals, now endangering everything they held dear. Yet in the aftermath, holding each other amid the chaos, the romance burned steady. Lila felt the pull of his loneliness easing into something shared, even as fears loomed. They would find Mira. They would fight. And perhaps, in the flames of passion and doubt, they would forge a bond strong enough to break the shadows forever. Bonds and broken vows. The ranch bore the scars of the attack, splintered wood and bloodied earth. But Silas's arms around Lila felt like the only steady ground left in Blackthorn Hollow. They patched what they could in silence, their hands brushing often, each touch a quiet reaffirmation. Emotional curiosity simmered in Lila as she watched him work. How did a man carry such loss, yet still offer protection so fiercely? By twilight, with the immediate threats repelled, they made their way back to her cottage, the journal tucked safely under her arm like a fragile map to salvation. Inside, the familiar scents of baked goods and herbs wrapped around them like a gentle embrace. Silas lit the fire, while Lila prepared a simple meal, but food was secondary to the need pulsing between them. After eating, they migrated to her bedroom, the space small and intimate with its quilt-covered bed, and moonlight filtering through lace curtains. The air felt charged, heavy with everything unsaid. Silas sat on the edge of the bed, pulling her between his knees. His storm-gray eyes searched hers, vulnerability laid bare. "Lila, I've been fighting this for so long. The loneliness became my armor. But you, your blood pie, your courage, the way you see me, have cracked it wide open. I love you. God's help me, but I do. Not as replacement for what I lost, but as something new, bright, worth every shadow we face." Tears welled in her eyes, a bittersweet surge of joy crashing against the sorrow of their shared pasts. "I love you too, Silas," she whispered, voice trembling with lovely emotion. "I was so lost after Grandma, baking for an empty house, wondering if I'd always be alone. You make the nights feel full again. Even with the curse, even with the danger, this feels like home." Their confessions hung sweet and heavy, undercut by the ache of Alara's memory and her grandmother's recent absence. Yet in voicing them, the bond deepened, teamwork born of two lonely hearts choosing each other. He drew her down into a kiss that started slow and reverent, building like a gathering storm. Clothes fell away piece by piece, her sweater, his flannel, until skin met skin in the fire-warmed room. Silas laid her gently on the bed, his large body covering hers with careful hunger. "Let me love you tonight," he growled softly, lips trailing down her neck, her collarbone, lower. "Without the bite, just us." Lila arched as his mouth found her breasts, tongue circling sensitive peaks until she gasped his name. His hands, strong yet tender, explored every curve, mapping her with alpha possessiveness tempered by love. Lower still, he settled between her thighs, silver-streaked hair brushing her skin as he tasted her intimately. The sensation was overwhelming. Hot, deliberate strokes of his tongue that had her fingers twisting in the sheets, pleasure coiling tight and bright. He groaned against her, the sound vibrating through her core, his own need evident in the rigid line of his body. "You taste like moonlight," he murmured, devotion lacing every word. Emotional release washed over her in waves, joy and sadness intertwining as she surrendered to his care. Lila reached for him too, her hand wrapping around his hardness, stroking with shy curiosity that quickly turned confident. They moved together in a dance of manual pleasure, hands and mouths bringing each other to shuddering peaks. Silas's release came with a deep, broken growl, his forehead pressed to hers, bodies slick and entwined. No claiming bite marred the moment, though his fangs grazed her shoulder in restraint, the curse's shadow hovering like a distant storm. In the afterglow, he held her close, stroking her hair, whispering promises that eased the ache of past losses. It was raw, beautiful, steamy passion, wrapped in profound tenderness, leaving them both emotionally bare and closer than ever. As dawn crept in, they returned to the journal, teamwork strengthening their resolve. The symbols aligned under their combined insight. The curse stemmed from an old betrayal by the Shadowfang Alpha's ancestor, who had coveted Thorn lands and invoked forbidden blood magic during a peace ritual generations ago. "It wasn't just Alara," Silas said, voice thick. "It was designed to poison every second bond. But your grandmother's notes, shared truth and blood under a prepared circle could unravel it." They began preparing the ritual, gathering moonberries, herbs, and a small vial for shared blood, curiosity fueling focused hope. Yet danger lurked closer than they knew. A knock at the door revealed Marcus, a longtime ranch hand from the edge of the community, offering help with supplies. His smile seemed kind, but Lila caught a fleeting unease in his eyes. Silas accepted the aid warily, but later, as they reviewed the ritual steps, they discovered a page missing from the journal, one Marcus had glimpsed earlier. "Betrayal from within," Silas muttered, protective fury mixing with sorrow. The community's fractures ran deeper than rival packs. Someone close was feeding information to the Shadowfangs. Mystery solved in part, yet new threads of danger tightened around them. They hid the remaining pages and fortified the cottage, but the emotional weight pressed heavy. Joy in their love confession, now laced with fresh fear. Still, as night fell and they curled together once more, hands linked in quiet solidarity, loneliness felt conquered. The bond they were forging, vow by vow, felt stronger than ancient curses. Tomorrow, they would seek Mira, ritual in hand, ready to fight for their forever amid the whispers of betrayal and the ever-present howl of rivals. But the moon had other plans. It rose swollen and blood-tinged, pulling at Silas with merciless force. They set out at dusk, packs slung over shoulders, the journal and ritual elements carefully wrapped. The deep woods swallowed them in shadows and silver light, curiosity thrumming in Lila's veins alongside love. What would the elder reveal? Could their shared truth truly unravel centuries of pain? She glanced at Silas, his silver-streaked hair glowing under the moon, and felt that lovely ache, sadness for the years he had suffered alone, happiness that she walked beside him now. The path to Mira's glade twisted through ancient pines, the air thick with magic and warning. They found the elder sooner than expected, a stooped figure with eyes like polished obsidian, waiting in a circle of standing stones. Mira listened as they explained. The blood pie, the journal, their growing bond. "The curse awakens at its peak tonight," she rasped. "Shared blood under the moon's edge can break it, but only if love outweighs fear. Begin the circle, I will guard the perimeter." Hope flared bright and fragile as they prepared. They drew the ritual circle with moonberries and herbs, pricked their palms, and let their blood mingle in a small earthen bowl. Silas's hand trembled in Lila's as they recited the words of truth. Vows of love spoken aloud, confessions of loneliness laid bare. "You are my second chance," he said, voice rough with emotion. "The light I never thought I'd deserve." Yet as the ritual words rose, the curse struck. Silas gasped, doubling over. Dark veins spread across his arms like thorny vines, the ancient magic manifesting physically. Burning, twisting. His wolf surged violently, golden eyes wide with pain and despair. "Lila, it's fighting back. I feel it trying to tear me from you." The sight broke her heart. This powerful alpha, reduced to trembling by shadows of the past. Tears streamed down her face as she held him, her own bloodied hand pressed to his chest. Profound love warred with terror. The fear of losing him now, when they had just found each other, was a raw, gaping wound. "Stay with me," she pleaded, voice cracking. Emotional curiosity twisted inside her. How much more could love endure? Sadness crashed over them both, heavy as the moon, but beneath it glowed fierce determination and the lovely warmth of knowing their hearts had already chosen. The pain drove them closer in desperate need. Silas pulled her into the center of the circle, his body burning hot against hers. "If this is the edge, I need to feel you fully," he growled, voice edged with moonlight madness. Their mouths crashed together in a raw, passionate kiss, teeth and tongues, hunger born of fear and love. Clothes were shed in frantic urgency, skin meeting skin under the blood moon's watchful eye. Silas lifted her, laying her gently on a bed of soft moss within the circle. His hands roamed with desperate reverence, mapping her body as if memorizing every curve in case the curse stole tomorrow. Lila arched into him, gasping as he entered her in one deep thrust. Passionate union, driven by full moon heat and the terror of impending loss. It was raw, emotional, their bodies moving in perfect, desperate rhythm. Silas's hips drove against hers with controlled power, each stroke sending waves of pleasure through her that mingled with tears. "I love you," he rasped between thrusts, fangs grazing her neck in biting teases that sent electric danger racing down her spine. The near claim heightened everything, pleasure sharpened by the curse's chill, love deepened by the risk. Lila wrapped her legs around him, nails digging into his shoulders, meeting every movement with equal fervor. Their shared breaths became moans, growls, whispered vows. sadness for what the curse might take, lovely joy in this moment of complete connection. Mira's chants wove around them, but the curse fought harder. Silas's veins darkened further, his body shuddering with pain even as ecstasy built. Yet he didn't stop, couldn't, pouring love into every touch, every kiss, every powerful thrust. Lila shattered first, crying out his name as waves of release crashed over her, pulling him over the edge with her. He buried his face in her neck, fangs pressing but not breaking skin, body trembling with the force of his climax and the curse's assault. For a heartbeat, peace held. Their mingled blood glowed in the bowl, the ritual humming with potential. Then violent danger shattered the glade. Howls erupted from all sides. Shadowfang wolves, more than a dozen, burst through the trees, led by their alpha, a scarred brute with eyes full of greed. "The thorn power is ours," he snarled. "The baker's blood and your broken curse will seal our claim." Mira cried out a warning as the circle was breached. Silas rose, partially shifted, shielding Lila with his body despite the curse's toll. Claws extended, he roared in defiance, but the physical manifestation weakened him, dark veins pulsing, movements slower. A brutal battle exploded, fangs and claws, blood spraying across moonlit stones. Silas fought ferociously, taking down 2 attackers, but another raked his side deeply. Lila grabbed a ritual dagger, standing beside him, her small frame fueled by love and fury. The interruptions scattered the ritual's energy. The bowl cracked, blood spilling uselessly. Despair clawed at Lila's heart as she watched Silas falter, yet their eyes met across the chaos, profound, unwavering love shining through fear. They would not yield, not tonight, not when they had come this far. Sacrifice under Sylve. Chaos erupted in the moonlit glade. Shadowfang wolves swarmed like a dark tide, their alpha's snarls cutting through the night. Silas, veins still blackened by the curse's wrath, fought with everything he had left. His partial shift made him a whirlwind of claws and fury, tearing into 2 attackers who lunged at Lila. Blood sprayed across the standing stones, mixing with their spilled ritual offering. Mira chanted desperately from the circle's edge, but her voice grew hoarse as enemies closed in. Lila's small dagger felt pitiful in her grip, yet she stood her ground, slashing at a wolf that broke through. Her arm burned from an earlier graze, but fear for Silas drowned everything else. He was slowing. Each movement cost him, the dark veins pulsing like living poison. "Silas!" she cried, voice breaking with raw desperation. The sadness of it all crashed over her, years of his lonely grief, her own fresh loss, the beautiful hope they had dared to build, now teetering on the edge of destruction. In a heartbeat, the Shadowfang Alpha barreled toward her, massive and ruthless. "The baker's blood will finish what the curse started," Silas roared, intercepting with a savage tackle. The 2 alphas collided in a blur of fangs and power. Silas pinned the enemy briefly, but the curse flared violently, forcing him to one knee. Dark magic seeped from his wounds, weakening him further. Heartbreaking decision crystallized in his golden eyes. "Lila, run," he gasped, blood trickling from his mouth. "Take Mira and go. I'll hold them. My sacrifice ends this, my life for yours. The curse dies with me." His voice carried the weight of long-held grief, the willingness to die so she might live free of his shadows. Catharsis broke open inside him as he spoke, tears mixing with blood. "Elara, I failed you once. I won't fail Lila. Let me finally atone." "No!" Lila's scream tore from her throat, fierce determination igniting like wildfire. She would not lose him. Not like this. She rushed forward, dodging claws, and dropped beside him in the fray. "We break it together or not at all. The blood pie wasn't just an offering, it was magic from my grandmother." She wrote of it as a bridge, not an end. Your first bond wasn't the trigger. Fear was. Our love is the key. The revelation hit amid the battle. The spilled blood from their ritual, and the pie's lingering essence on Silas's earlier wounds, began to glow faintly. Mystery unraveled. The Shadowfang curse fed on isolation and regret. Their shared truth had weakened it, but only a true claiming, willing, born of love, could shatter it completely. Danger pressed mercilessly. The enemy Alpha broke free, slashing Silas's chest deeply. Lila screamed as her mate crumpled. In that life-or-death moment, passion and sacrifice collided. Silas pulled her close with trembling strength, their bodies pressed together on the bloodied moss. "Then claim me as I claim you," he growled, voice husky with pain and desperate need. "Now." Their mouths crashed in a fiery kiss, blending fear, love, and raw hunger. Even wounded, Silas's hands roamed her with urgent reverence, tearing at remaining clothes. Lila straddled him amid the chaos, the battle raging around them like a storm. Heat flared, despite the blood and danger, his hardness pressing against her body aching with need and terror. She sank onto him in one desperate motion, gasping at the fullness, the perfect union of pleasure and pain. Silas thrust up into her, powerful even in weakness, their rhythm frantic and emotional. Every stroke carried catharsis, release of his long grief, her fierce love chasing away shadows. As climax built, his fangs grazed her neck. "If the curse takes me after this, know I loved you truly." Lila tilted her head, offering everything. "Bite me, Silas. Claim me. We survive together." The claiming bite came in the heart of battle, his teeth sinking into her soft flesh as pleasure peaked. Pain bloomed sharp and sweet, mingling with ecstasy as he spilled inside her. The bond snapped into place like silver chains of moonlight. Power surged through them both. The curse's dark veins recoiled, burning away in a flash of light. Their mingled blood, hers from the pie's original offering, theirs from the ritual, ignited true magic. The blood pie's hidden power revealed itself, a bridge of devotion that turned sacrifice into strength. Silas roared as new vitality flooded him, the curse shattering with a sound like breaking glass. He rose, fully empowered, shielding Lila as he tore through the remaining shadow fangs. The enemy Alpha faltered, sensing the shift, and fled with his surviving pack, howls fading into the pines. Mira approached, awe in her ancient eyes. The bond held. Love outweighed fear. "The thorn line is free." Lila collapsed into Silas's arms, tears streaming, sadness for all they had endured, lovely joy in survival and union. He held her tight, the claiming mark on her neck throbbing with warmth, their bond humming with shared emotions. Cathartic sobs racked him as he buried his face in her hair, releasing years of self-blame over Alara. "You saved me," he whispered, "my fierce little baker." They lingered in the glade as dawn approached, wounds tended with Mira's herbs, the weight of loss lifting like mist. Danger had tested them to the brink, but their love, sealed in blood, pleasure, and sacrifice, had prevailed. The path home felt brighter, though echoes of betrayal still lingered with Marcus and the community. For now, in each other's arms, two lonely souls had become one unbreakable whole. The first rays of sunrise filtered through the ancient pines, painting the glade in soft golds and pinks. Lila nestled closer against Silas's bare chest, the claiming mark on her neck pulsing warmly with their new bond. It felt like coming home after years of wandering, his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, chasing away the last shadows of loneliness. She traced the fading dark veins on his arm, emotional curiosity blooming softly. How had this powerful, broken alpha endured so much solitude, only to emerge stronger through their shared pain? The sadness of their pasts lingered like morning dew. Alara's memory, her grandmother's gentle voice, but it no longer drowned them. Instead, it sweetened the joy of survival. Silas tilted her chin up, storm-gray eyes now clear and glowing with quiet wonder. "The curse is gone," he murmured, voice rough with awe. "I feel light. For the first time since losing her, I can breathe without the weight." A bittersweet tear slipped down his cheek, cathartic release washing over him. He pressed his forehead to hers. "Thank you, my Lila, for the blood pie, for seeing the man beneath the widow's shadow." They rose slowly, bodies still intertwined, and walked a short distance to a sun-dappled clearing where soft moss beckoned. The air smelled of pine, earth, and new beginnings. No words were needed as they sank together onto the natural bed. This time, their lovemaking was tender, fully mated, unhurried by curse or battle. Silas laid her down with reverent hands, his silver-streaked hair catching the dawn light like a halo. He kissed her slowly, deeply, savoring every sigh, as if rediscovering her anew through their bond. Lila arched beneath him, her fingers exploring the healed scars on his back. The bond hummed between them, allowing her to feel echoes of his emotions, lingering grief softening into gratitude, loneliness transforming into profound belonging. He entered her with exquisite care, their bodies joining in a slow, loving rhythm that drew gasps and whispers from both. Each thrust was affirming, a celebration of survival and second chances. Silas's mouth trailed worshipful kisses along her neck, tongue soothing the claiming mark as he moved inside her. "You are my dawn," he growled softly, voice thick with love. Pleasure built gradually, deep and resonant, their hips rocking in perfect harmony. Lila wrapped her legs around him, pulling him closer, tears of overwhelming happiness mingling with soft moans. The sadness of what they had lost made this union all the lovelier, two wounded hearts healing through connection, bodies and souls fully claimed. Climax washed over them together, gentle yet powerful, waves of release that left them trembling in each other's arms. They stayed joined for long moments afterward, Silas holding her as sunrise fully broke, bathing their skin in golden warmth. Emotional afterglow wrapped around them like a blanket, lovely, healing, full of quiet promises. Hand in hand, they made their way back to Blackthorn Hollow as the sun climbed higher. The ranch came into view, still bearing scars from the attacks, but now it felt like theirs to rebuild. Marcus waited near the fence, his face pale with guilt. The betrayal had been uncovered through Mira's quiet insights. The ranch hand had been coerced by Shadowfang promises of land and power. Confronted, Marcus confessed with bowed head, expecting punishment. Silas's alpha presence loomed, but the new bond tempered his fury. "You nearly cost us everything," he said gravely. "But today is for healing, not more blood. Leave these lands. Spread word that the Thorn Pack stands united, and the curse is broken." Mercy, born of his own hard-won peace, surprised even him. Marcus fled, and with him went the last threads of internal mystery and danger. News of the curse's breaking spread quickly through the pines. By midday, representatives from neighboring packs arrived, not with howls of war, but cautious respect. The Shadowfangs, leaderless after their alpha's flight, sent envoys seeking truce. Silas stood tall beside Lila, their bond visible in the way they moved as one. "The old grudges end here," he declared. "Lands shared, not stolen. Blood offered in devotion, not violence. Packs reconciled under the watchful sun, tentative alliances forming where fear once ruled." The air felt lighter, mystery fully unraveled into understanding. That evening, back in Lila's cottage, soon to be theirs together, they baked side by side. Moonberry pie, this time without blood, filled the kitchen with sweet warmth. Lila smiled as Silas stole a berry, his rare, crooked grin lighting his face. They ate on the porch as stars emerged, talking of the future, expanding the ranch, teaching their children the old recipes and new ways of strength. Hints of family to come warmed Lila's heart. She imagined little ones with silver-streaked hair running through the pines, laughter chasing away the last echoes of loneliness. As night settled, Silas pulled her into his lap, arms encircling her protectively. "From a blood pie under the full moon to this," he whispered, nuzzling her claiming mark. "You saved me, little baker, and I'll spend every dawn proving I'm yours." Lila kissed him softly, heart full to bursting. The sadness of loss had carved space for this deep, healing love. Two solitary souls, once shadowed by grief and curses, now walked forward together, romance blooming eternal, danger defeated, mystery resolved into peaceful certainty. In Blackthorn Hollow, under a gentle moon, the widowed Alpha and his shy baker had written a new story, one of hope, family, and love that even ancient magic could not break. What happens next is up to you. Would you leave a blood pie under the full moon for a lonely Alpha? What secret would you whisper to Silas in the barn during a rainstorm? If the curse tried to tear you apart, how fiercely would you fight for your second chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments or reply right here. Tell me your favorite moment, the blood pie offering, The claiming under fire? The tender dawn scene? Share which scene made your heart ache the most, or race the hardest. Ask for an alternate ending, a spicy bonus scene, a future glimpse of their life with pups, or even your own custom what-if version. If this story wrapped itself around your heart, the way Silas's arms wrapped around Lila, I'd love to know. Share it with someone who needs a little moonlit hope tonight. Tell them about the shy baker and the widowed alpha who found each other when both thought love was lost forever. Subscribe for more. Because the best love stories don't end on the page, they echo in the readers who dare to feel them. The moon is still watching. What will you offer it? I'm waiting, just like Silas waited on that stone ledge.